Welcome to another week of the rotation with Mike and John. That's Mike. I'm John. We're going to bring you our 5 takes of the week like we normally do. But, Mike, how's your baseball week been?
Okay. Not great, not terrible. Okay. And I
Right.
think you know why.
The dog days of old.
Yeah, I mean it's heating up, man. In more ways than one, both outside and like the division races as per usual are getting, tighter, or the whoever's going to end up being the division winners kind of
Yeah.
separating themselves. Tis the season.
Right.
Tis the season for these races to come to a climax, if you
It
will. How
feels
about
like
you?
everything's at a standstill right now. Like
Mhm.
standings wise, teams wise, it feels like teams are losing, then winning, losing, winning, losing. There's no
Right.
real team other than maybe the Braves and Dodgers that are really just taking off, right? Like
Right.
they're not. There's not a team out there really right now. So it should be interesting coming into September. We're already halfway through August, Mike. I mean, it's
I
crazy.
mean, yeah.
But being halfway through August, let's just hop into our Yankees talk. And I know it's not going to be good today because I know both of us are miserable.
Yeah.
But man, has it been fucking miserable, dude? Like
I
just
know.
miserable.
I
And you
know.
know what? It's not, and it's something that I've said to you before. If you don't mind me just going first here,
Go
but it's not that I don't like Aaron Boone as the manager. I don't mind him as the manager. But when, for instance, on this recording of Sunday, August 13th, Yankees had a 7-2 lead going into the ninth, and we're thinking we're going to go in and we're going to, take care of business, right?
Mhm.
Well, the Yankees ended up losing today in a walk-off fashion where the Marlins scored 6 straight runs on Clay Holmes to win the game. And my biggest gripe with Boone is he either leaves a pitcher in too long or he leaves him in not long enough. And here's the thing, right, man? I said this last week. You got to stop with the fucking analytics, man. Watch the game. If your pitcher does not have it, he does not have it.
Right.
Pull him. Get someone up in the pen. Have them ready. Like you've been struggling on the mound as of late, all across the board, and then you got your star. I watched it. I watched a take on Talking Yanks,
Mhm.
tagging you Talking Yanks into this. But they said that Garrett Cole, I think it was 9 of his 9 last games, or he has 9 games of his starts
Mhm.
that have either gone no decisions or losses because the bats can't either the bats or the bullpen can't get the win for him. So Garrett Cole could be like a double digit winning pitcher. I think he's 9-2 this year or 9-4 or something like that. But he could be in like 15, 16 range right now.
Right.
So it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I saw a stat as well with Cole where the Yankees have now lost 9 of his starts this year.
That's what I was going off of.
Yeah, he has a 2.73 ERA
Right.
in those starts. It's nuts.
It's
It's nuts.
terrible. And
Yep.
you're wasting this guy's talent, in
Yep.
my opinion. He should have signed with back with Houston. He should have signed with the Braves or the Dodgers, in my opinion.
Yep.
And that's me being a diehard Yankee fan saying it's because you're wasting this man's talent.
Yep.
You're wasting his ability. And I'm sorry, but if I'm Aaron Judge, I'm looking in the mirror and said, did I make a fucking mistake in coming signing back with this team? Because it's absolutely ridiculous.
It 100% is. And I think we've discussed it before. The root of that whole Boone decision making problem as a whole with this team is they don't have a single person on their current coaching staff that knows how to handle a pitching staff from a decision making perspective. Boone doesn't know how to do it. And Matt Blake, the pitching coach, is a great pitching coach for teaching pitching, the mechanics of pitching. That's where he came from. He came from Cleveland, and that's what he was. He was essentially their pitching guru over in Cleveland. And so he got hired by the Yankees. But he
I
has
mean,
no experience on how to game manage pitchers. So I know I said last week, he needs, if it's going to be Boone at manager, there needs to be someone that's going to, handle the staff for him and tell him or at least advise him on decisions to make. I don't think Matt Blake is that because he has no experience doing that. And so we're SOL in that case, unfortunately.
But at the end of the day, the managers are going to make the call if they're going to go out to the mound. I know they're going to listen to their entourage there and say, okay, yeah, let's pull him. But even so, I talked about it last week how he pulled Stanton when IKF was 3 for 4 that night, and you pull a guy who is notoriously terrible coming off the bench when in a pitch hitting situation.
Yep.
So that doesn't make any sense. A lot of the decisions don't make any sense. And then he's coming in to press conferences and he's losing his job by his press conferences. In my opinion, he's losing his job that way because basically what he's saying is we're hitting the bat. He goes into the press conference against Baltimore, says we've hit the bats, we've swung the bat okay this series, and then John Boy comes out and says, "Booney, you guys just struck out 18 times in one game."
Yeah, there's only 27 outs.
Well, yeah, that was a little foolish of me. No, bro, stand on your fucking. He doesn't even know what to say at this point because he's so flustered with the season. Stand on your soapbox, though, bro. It's like stay in your ground. Like I respect him 100%, but I would respect you more if you would have said no. I think they were good cuts. They had good at bats. They were, but 18 strikeouts. 18 in one game, Mike, and that seems to be the common theme with them is they can't hit guys. They can't hit guys in, but get guys in. They can't get guys in off the bags. What am I trying to say here?
They can't drive in runs.
They can't drive in runs, and when they do have them, they strike out. So their numbers on strikeouts are high, and their numbers left on base are high. That does not equal championship. They are so far from a fucking championship. And I commend the Mets for just saying, fuck it. I'm selling everyone and I'm developing who I want to win a championship. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets, a crosstown rival, goes and wins a championship in the next 3 to 4 years because they're set for it right now. They said we're going to win with Alonso and Lindor or we're not going to win at all. We're getting rid of all the old guys. We're getting rid of all these contracts. And realistically, I said that too. They should have got rid of Stanton. They should have got rid of Rizzo. Yes, they're big attractions to the park. They hit the ball a long way. They do a great job. Rizzo, I'll give a little bit of a break because he's been having a great year and it makes sense now because of the concussion. Yeah. But, man, dude, it just frustrates the hell out of me to see this because it's just – and I'm not an MLB manager, neither are you, and we never even came close to it. But it's just, in my opinion – so it's just common sense. I'm watching the game. I'm like, pull him. Sevy gives up 2 runs in the first. Pull him. He doesn't have it. Pull him. He hasn't had it over the last 5 games. You need to have that type of discipline on the team to say, no, you're gone, dude. You don't have it. You just gave up a 2-run home run. You just left the pitch over the plate. And that's exactly what you're saying. That's where Blake needs to come in and say, hey, get him out of there. He doesn't have it tonight.
He doesn't have it, right.
We have to go bullpen today. And that's where you go to bullpen. You have Johnny Brito. You have the long guys in there that can go in and get you those innings.
And the thing is, I understand if you're in a playoff spot and you're really trying to manage to hold it, even if you're struggling, right? You're trying to climb out of the gutter right now. You can't think about, you've said this to me on the phone before. You can't think about tomorrow. You cannot manage for tomorrow. It's like, well, we needed to save our arms because, we got so-and-so coming up. And blah. You don't have time to do that. You just need to use who you have. Also, to your point in the past, these are professional baseball players.
Right.
They need to be able to do whatever you ask them to do. If you're a pitcher that I need you to throw, if you're a relief pitcher that normally throws an inning or 2, and I need you to throw 3 or 4, I'm going to ask you to throw 3 or 4. Like, that's just what I need from you today. Like, your arm... If your arm is going to fall off if you throw more than 2 innings, then we have a bigger problem. You're not ready to pitch at a major league level. That's me.
I agree with you 100% with that, and we'll get on to our first 5 of the takes of the week. But ultimately, he needs to have the balls, in my opinion, to say the guy doesn't have it tonight. And he doesn't. And he hasn't had it. And I'm not just talking about this season, everyone. So if you're listening to this and like, oh, he's made it to the playoffs, made it to the ALCS, it don't mean shit if you lose your last game. Right. Okay? Great quote from Moneyball where he says it. If you lose your last game, is it really that important? No, it's not. They got swept in the ALCS last year. Embarrassment. I would have rather lost to Cleveland. To be honest with you, I would have rather lost to Cleveland in DS and say or wild card, whatever we played them in.
Yeah.
Whoever we played in the DS.
Yes. That was Cleveland.
But no. We played Cleveland in the wild card. We played Astros in the DS.
No, we played Cleveland in the DS. We played Houston in the CS.
Oh, we did. Okay, yeah, we did have 2 series because there was 5 game and then the 7, right?
Yeah.
But my biggest thing is over the course of his career with the Yankees right now as a coach, he's hasn't managed games, and I've been up in arms like, why the fuck aren't you pulling guys?
Right.
And in my opinion, that's how I would manage a game. And I understand that's not how they like to do it in these GMs now.
Right.
But in my head, you're hiring me to do a job. Let me go do that job. And if I have good baseball sense, I'm telling Sevy, look at you've been shit. I'll be honest with you, you've been shit over the last 5 games. I'm starting you tonight, but just know there are guys in the bullpen ready to go in when you give up a couple runs in a row. When I know you don't have it. So understand that. Sevy has no leg to stand on. He's been hurt and he hasn't and when he's been in there, he's been okay. Been mediocre at best. Right. So in my opinion, it's time for a change in the Yankees organization at the top. It is time for a change. Cashman, Boone, you've had a good run. Time to move over and get someone in there that can go and play baseball. Even when your former captain says they're playing too much analytic baseball, it's time for a change. And who I would love to see step into that GM position if he wants it.
Me too.
I mean, he's been hanging around New York a lot lately, so who knows? But Mike, let's get on with it. Let's get to our first takes of the week. Take it away. What is your first take of the week?
So my first take of the week, a recent development, which is good to see, even though it is with the Yankees rivals. So Chris Sale's back, made his first start since June, looked pretty good for Boston, but doesn't make Boston complete contenders. I think it improves them, but I don't think it puts them so over the top or close to, your Texases, your Baltimores, your Tampas.
No, yeah.
So.
No, I mean, him coming back is huge. Just for hype for this organization. I mean, they're still 3 out of a wild card spot, right? So, I mean, they're 2 games up on the Yankees, and they're kind of in a similar position as the Yankees. They win some games, and then they lose to teams where you're just like, how, what, and they lose games like terribly. And anytime they play teams at the top, they're usually not that good with them this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Boston Yankees stay the same in the same position in the wild card. But it is good to see Chris Sale back. I know I really did feel bad for him when he came in for the against the Yankees and then gets a liner back at him and breaks his hand. And that I was like, damn, that sucks. So as a baseball fan, it sucks to see a star pitcher like that go out and be almost tormented with injuries over the last 5 years, I would say. Him and DeGrom, I would say, are the 2, and then Strasburg right after that. But it's good to see him back out there, and we'll see what happens to them down the road here. And hopefully, I mean, I don't hope, but, hopefully for the Red Sox fans out there that, he can, spark this team over the next 6 weeks that we have here in the season.
Yeah, obviously, like from a Yankee fan perspective, I hope that it doesn't make the Red Sox contenders and that they don't win games. But I do wish Chris Sale the best of health. What's your first take of the week?
So even though they lost this past series here, the Phillies are heating up. And are the Phillies starting to play that position? I mean, right now they're in a playoff spot. They're in a wild card. So they're in the playoffs. So they're kind of doing exactly what you're saying that the Yankees would be. They're the first wild card team, so that's always good. So they would probably play Miami at this point, which is a division rival. So looking at the Phillies, are they starting to heat up right now? I mean, they're 8-5 in August so far. They're playing good baseball. The pitchers are starting to find their locations. The bats are going. The Philly vibe is growing because of the Eagles starting up. You got the You got the guys said the Eagles are starting up.
Yeah.
You got the Eagles starting up. You got the Phillies starting to go into playoff baseball. 76ers are back, so that Philly vibe is real. And like, are they going to make that run that they made last year?
I mean, they're starting to play like they're going to, and this is the right time to start playing that way.
Right.
To get everybody back. Unfortunately, I think it would be great for them if they were able to get Reese Hoskins back along with, some of the other guys. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen this year. But I think they're a team, they're a well-run organization that is a very cohesive kind of unit,
Yeah.
as we saw last year. And so it wouldn't shock me if they keep playing like this, it wouldn't shock me if they can make a run. Like, especially with a guy like Trey Turner that can be a difference maker in so many different facets of the game on top of the guys they already have. So I'll be interested to see what
Yeah.
Phillies team we get going into October.
Not to mention Trey Turner has been heating up. I think he's hitting over
Yeah.
300 in his last 10 games, which is
Mhm.
really good for the Phillies. Castellanos is doing his thing. Harper is there. She's got Schwarber. So even though you're missing Reese Hoskins, they went and got some replacement players for him. They got Harper trying out at first, in case they got to put him in the playoffs. So
Mhm.
it could be a dangerous Phillies team. And, I know Phillies fans are like, damn it, why can't we just be consistently good?
Right.
But you got that team up above you, the Braves. They're
Yeah.
kicking ass right now. So no one's really catching them. What is your second take of the week?
Well, since we're on the topic of the Atlanta Braves, as the Mets most recently learned, on top of many other teams that have learned that this year, the Braves this season in particular will show no mercy.
Nope.
They are here to beat everyone as badly as they damn well feel like beating them. 21 was 21-3, 21-4.
21
That final 21-3, that final score was against the Mets the other night.
Mm.
Oh my god. Like, we
know.
talk about all the time how good this Braves team is, but man, they're just like, you know what? No. This is our year. Like, no. Everybody's talking about, like you said, the red hot Phillies, and are the Mets gonna put together something now that they've kind of shed a bunch of cap? And the Dodgers are heating up out west, and the Central is got some pretty good like underdog teams, and the Braves are like, no.
I know. I'm good.
No. You all can stay down there. We're gonna be up here real quick. And Texas, if you want to come, take a shot at the title, as my father would say, take a shot at the title, you can go for it. We're not, there is. I'll leave you in my side of this with a quote from the Karate Kid. There is no mercy in this dojo.
Yeah, and I was looking at this earlier. Is like at the time of this recording, August 13th here.
Mm-hmm.
The Mets have outscored right now because the Mets and Braves are playing right now for Sunday Night Baseball. Right now, the Mets have outscored the Mets. The Braves have outscored the Mets this series, this 4-game series, 34-4.
And 3 of those came in one game in which they also gave up 21.
Yes. So it's 7-0 first game, 21-3, 6-0 yesterday, and then 3-1 currently right now, which if that stands, it's middle of fourth, so it could go up. But yeah, I mean, they're a dominant team, man. They play consistently. Every player on that team, and I went through the roster with you, is like that's a championship level team.
Yes.
This reminds me of that 98 Braves team. Shout out to Morgan Wallen.
There you go.
But that does remind me of this Braves team. Good pitching staff. It doesn't have the name holders that for the pitching staff wise, but for the the fielders in the rest of the team, that's a pretty solid roster. And if I remember correctly, I believe that 98 Braves team was kicking some people's ass. The problem is they kicked ass last year too. So they got to continue that. And I think that's all in their head too, is like, we got to extend this into the playoffs. I mean, Matt Olson is just crushing it right now. I saw something last week. He has 41 home runs or something like that.
Yeah.
Matt Olson for the Braves, I think it is.
Yeah. The first
I saw it.
baseman.
I was reading it. I was like, what? He has 41 home runs? Like, it's secret. Oh, 42. I'm sorry. Today must
He hit
42
one today.
home runs.
Yeah.
He hit one today. 42 home runs and 105 RBIs with Acuna batting 336. Like, it's incredible, like, what they're doing on this team. And it's just, we talk about them every single, 1 through 8 right here: 280, 336, 269, 270, 237, 246, 293. It's just consistent. And on the bench, 277, 267, 235, 235, 277. Like, you have to get all the way down probably 15 rows to get to the first guy under 200. And it's incredible. Most rosters can't even get guys to bat 240. And they got like 4 guys batting that. So hats off to the Braves.
Yeah. Let's just hope that, as you said with Morgan Wallen, they don't run into damn Padres.
Yeah,
I don't think they're running into the Padres this year.
No, I don't think so either.
Maybe the Dodgers. Maybe the damn Dodgers.
Knowing them, they'll probably will run into the Padres. Will make a run for it. All of a sudden, it's like, God damn.
If there's only one thing we can do this year, gentlemen, it's to ruin the Braves again.
And ruin Morgan Wallen's song, so he has to make a 23.
Damn 23 Braves.
Isn't that a Taylor Swift song? I don't know about you, but 22. 22, that's close. It, right? Yeah. That was close, right?
She can make a 23 one too. Like, yeah. So, what's your second take?
Well, I guess we're gonna continue with this rolling crew, and I said this earlier, but man, the Dodgers are just fucking cruising, man. Mm-hmm. They got a hold of that first place, and they just said, "See ya." I mean, in one player in particular, I look at it and I'm just like, dude, this dude is so. Why didn't the Yankees go after this guy? And that's Freddie fucking Freeman.
I was gonna say, can I guess Freddie Freeman?
339, 23 home runs, and 83 RBIs. But he's consistently, Mike. He's consistently hitting over 300. Like the last few years. I mean, look at I go back to his averages with the Braves. The last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years he's hit. Okay, so here we'll start back at the first time he's hit 302 for the year. 2016, 302. 307, 309, 295. He had a slump of a year,
bad year.
In 2019. 2020, 341, 321, 325, 339. The guy is a consistent hitter. He sees the ball like a beach ball. Why didn't the Yankees go get him is beyond me. I don't think they were in contention, but still, come on, guys. You go after Anthony Rizzo. I'm sorry, but he's not even close. It's not even in the same ballpark as Freddie Freeman. And the Dodgers are just, I don't know what they're doing or out there, but they're just cruising, man, and they're just set. And if I'm them, do I really need, I'm looking at it, do I really need Shohei? I mean, it'd be great to have him, obviously, right? But
yeah,
do I need to go spend this money and kind of ruin some key pieces, right? But the Dodgers are cruising, man, and it looks like it's going to be a Braves, Dodgers, NLCS if they have it match up correctly.
Yeah, and I think there's still a shot that they might get Walker Buehler back in time for the playoffs.
Yes, I heard that. That he could get back the 2 weeks before the end of September, which would give him one rehab start, and his rehab start would be with the team, is what I read.
Yeah, they would probably throw him 4 innings.
4 innings.
Get him loose.
And they don't care. And from what I read, they don't care if he gives up a bunch of runs or anything. They just care about how his velocity and everything are doing, which just happens in most times.
But besides, by then, the Dodgers should, I think, have the West wrapped up and or at least a playoff spot, in which case you can afford to kind of let him work out of any, kinks or issues that.
But you want him to work out of a jam. You want him to work into runners on second and third, 2 outs. Right. With a good hitter up. You want him to work in that situation because you're going to see it in the playoffs, right? So
right. Yeah, I think if you add him to this Dodgers team, which, man, I agree with you, Freddie Freeman, I'd love him to be a Yankee so much. Not to mention, they also have, I think people forget they still have Mookie Betts.
Who's still hitting well, too.
Yeah, he's still an all-star.
Right. It's not like Mookie's 287 this year. He's got 31 homers.
Oh well.
And what does he got for ribbies? 80 RBIs. So he's right
Oh
there with Freddie Freeman. They're just consistent, man. They're just consistently good. It's actually fun to watch some of their games, to be honest with you, because
yeah.
you're watching a team that can just really see the ball, hit the ball, pitch very well. All facets of the game are doing well. So, Mikey Mike, what is your third take of the week, brother?
My third take of the week. So I'm gonna take us over to the Central
Ooh.
and kind of keep going with this streaking team. In that, I would say, in my estimation, the time for the Milwaukee Brewers to win the Central is right now. They need to make their move right now. They've got a 4-game winning streak as of this recording, 7-3 in their last 10 games. Meanwhile, the two teams below them, the Cubs and the Reds, both lost their last games. The Cubs are middle of the road, 6-4 in their last 10. The Reds are 2-8 in
Yeah,
their
they've
last
been
10.
struggling.
So, if there was a time to increase that lead to a comfortable lead that you can then work on holding in September,
Hmm.
it's right now.
Yeah.
You got to make your move now because the teams below you aren't, faring as well in the moment. So now's
Right.
the time.
Yeah, man. I mean, looking at the Brewers, I mean they have been very consistent, and I know that's going to be a common word here I'm saying today,
Right.
but they have been very consistent. They got the hold of that lead and they stayed there. But I agree with you. I think that they have to have that type of mentality where, like, I'm down. The problem is, though, they go into a 3-game series with the Dodgers. So the team we just
That's
talked about,
forgettable.
they have to go. But it's good though, because you know why? They got to treat this series as a playoff series because they
Mhm.
could potentially be facing the Dodgers in the first round
Right.
of the playoffs. So as much as you don't want to play that team, you do want to play that team because as an athlete like we are, like, I want to play the best. I don't want to
Mhm.
play. And if I get my ass kicked, I get my ass kicked. But that's the best I'm playing, right? I don't want to play these scrubs. I mean, it's good to extend the lead on scrubs. Like, would they have liked the athletics next? Yeah, of course. But I think this is good for them to go out and play a team of this caliber, maybe take 2 out of 3, have some confidence in that because you take 2 out of 3, you have confidence now. Like, hey, we can play with these guys, man. We can
Right.
we can pitch with them. We can hit with them. And Milwaukee's a great town. I mean, they love their Bucks. I was gonna say Buccaneers, but they love their Milwaukee Bucks. They love their Green Bay Packers. I wouldn't be surprised to see them step on the gas and just take off here and win the Central. If the and not to mention the other teams probably are gonna knock each other out as it is probably down the road.
The NL Central's a bar fight right now, right? And everybody else is fighting each other. So it's time for you to slip out the back to safety, and safety in this case being the division title. What is your third of the week?
My third is we're going to stay in the Central, and I'm going to talk about the Chicago Cubbies. They said at the deadline, we're in it to win now.
Mhm.
We're going to win now, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to go into playoffs with the team that we have. We didn't expect this. We expect to sell off Bellinger if he was good. So, I mean, look, the Cubs are 8-4 in their last 12 games in August. So, August record so far. And the bats they're staying hot. Even though they're losing games, they're staying in there. They're getting runs. They're driving in runs. They're keeping their left on base low. They're doing the things they need to do to win ball games. Yeah, they just lost this last series, but they're playing good baseball. The biggest thing I have for them is, will the pitching maintain what the bats are doing, right?
Right.
You can go out there and the bats can go get 7 runs, but if your pitching staff is giving up 8, it's kind of hard for you to win baseball games, right? So it's got to all
Right.
be in tandem. So will the pitching, other than Marcus Stroman, who hasn't been playing that well, right? That Cy Young type Stroman,
Mm-hmm.
will they, catapult them there?
Yeah, and that's I think the biggest question they got to ask themselves as they head down the stretch right now is what's our depth going to do?
Mhm.
Do we have the right? Do we have the and any contender has to ask themselves this at some point.
Mhm.
Um, do we have the pitching depth to win? Because like defense wins championships in football.
Yeah.
pitching wins championships in baseball. Like, if you don't have good pitching, right? I agree with your point where it's like you can score all the runs you want, but as long as your pitching gives up one more run than you score, you lose.
Right.
No matter what you do. So, yeah, it's pitching wins championships in baseball, and so they got to figure that out. Do they have enough? Now,
Right.
if you want my perspective on it, not yet. I think they're on the right track to it, but not this year.
I mean, they're only. I mean, realistically, they're only on a wild card right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're only half a game out from the Marlins. The Marlins getting that win today actually helped them a lot, but they're only half a game out, so they're not far off the wild card to make a playoff run. Do I think they catch the Brewers? No, I don't think so. But could they make a playoff run? All they have to do is get in, and I think that's the biggest misunderstanding thing in sports in general. Just get in. Once you get in, it's 0-0.
Right.
It don't matter.
Anyone can win at that point.
Right.
Right.
So, what is your fourth take of the week?
Well, it's funny you should ask. We're going to stay in the Central, and we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Reds, the other real contender in that division at the moment, and that's that.
So this is the rotation with this NL Central,
with
right?
the featuring primarily the NL Central.
Okay.
The Reds are out of steam.
Yeah.
They pushed hard throughout the year, have done incredibly admirably. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very, very impressed with where it turns out that organization is. But man, just like last few, like I said before, they're 2-8 in their last 10 games. They're still over 500. They're only a game out of out of a wild card spot, but they lost earlier today. They lost to Pittsburgh. They're playing them right now. Then 2 losses to the Marlins. They got swept by the Nationals. Lost 3 of 4 to the Cubs. Like, it's not, and before that they had split a series with San Francisco and swept Arizona not too long ago. But you got to beat the Nationals, man. You just
those are gimme series in my opinion, but those are also dangerous series because of those teams are not playing for anything, so they'll go out and, hey, why not? Let's have a game. Let's ruin someone else's day.
Right.
So that's the problem with those type of series is that you're right. They need to win those series, and getting swept by the Nationals and losing this series against Pittsburgh are critical games. To not take 2 out of 3 or 2 out of and whatever out of there. I mean, that's only winning 1 game out of those. I think what was it, 6 games or was it 7?
Yes,
6.
6, yeah.
Is not going to get the job done, and that's part of the problem with a lot of these teams right in the middle of the road, like the Yankees, like these Reds, like the Cubs. It seems like the Central and the East are kind of like the closest series right now,
Yeah.
And I think that's why we keep talking about those, is because they can't get out of their own way. Like, they just can't, and that's the problem with a lot of these teams. They just keep shooting themselves in the foot, and at some point you're going to run out of road, and you're going to hit a wall that's the end of the season and be out of the playoffs at that point.
Like we've said, these are the dog days of summer. This is when you gotta put up or shut up. And unfortunately, I think the Reds put up for so long that now they really don't have a lot left.
No.
In the tank, because, and like I said, I think the Reds, have proven that they are on a much faster rise than anyone thought going into the year. I don't want to say, start taking your bows and accepting how successful your season was, because it's still middle of August. They could still make a move, but they better turn it around fast and get that energy back quickly before, like we said before, the Cubs and Brewers pull away. So what is your fourth takeaway of the week?
I'm going to keep it with the Cubbies, man, and I'm going to stick with my man, Cody motherfucking Bellinger, having an MVP-type season, actually better than his MVP season other than home runs. He's batting .328, hitting 18 homers and 59 RBIs. Not really great on the RBIs and hits, but he's hitting for average. And you know what? Give this man his flowers, because you know what? Everyone was writing him off over the last 3 years. But this man said, you know what? I'm going to bet on my motherfucking self. and I'm going to take myself to the promised land and get this contract. Number one. Number two, he's going to get himself a long-term deal, and next year is going to be this offseason is going to be his for choosing. So if I'm the Cubs, I'm negotiating with his agent right now
Mhm.
to lock him in, because you know why? If not, he's not going to be there next year. He's going to be with some other team. And I commend this guy so much. I watched his workouts. I watched what he did on social media and other YouTube videos and stuff, and he worked his ass off to get back here. Everyone thinks he's just this guy that looks like he's high all the time and he doesn't care about the game and he's just lackadaisical, when he really does work hard, man. And I got to give him his props because he's busted his ass. He's proven to people that he is an MVP in this league and deserves every single one of it. The unfortunate part is that there's a guy in Atlanta that's batting 348, has almost 70 stolen bases, and has almost 40 home runs and over 100 RBIs. So that's the only reason why he won't be getting that MVP this year. Not to mention, on a side note, there's a lot more guys hitting over 300 nowadays than I've ever seen. And I think
Yeah,
that's what baseball wanted ultimately is for this to happen, because they took away everything the pitcher could do with the baseball.
right. Yeah. There, as a side note, on top of your side note to start off, yeah, there are more people hitting over 300. Strange how none of them are Yankees. Um,
One is.
well, is he hitting over 300?
I'll look it up. Go ahead. What do you take?
Anyway, yeah, I'm very happy to see Cody Bellinger return to form. I was telling people that were shitting on him like the last 2, 3 years. I was like, listen, they messed with his swing. His swing's not right. Well, how can you say that? I was like, look at the difference between his MVP season swing and his swing the last 2 years. They dropped his hands. His timing's all off. He's got a loop to his swing. And then, like, I told my cousins this, and they went and watched it, and they're like, oh my God, you're right. So, like, his swing's completely different. So he just needs a place to go, not have to worry about the pressures of playing, you know, consistently with a team like the Dodgers, which was like, we got to win all the time. The Cubs were like, we want to build a winner. And I think Bellinger enjoys that. I think he likes being in Chicago. I have no doubt that he's going to be a Chicago Cub long term, simply because supposedly this is what came out of the trade deadline for the Cubs was he and Stroman went to management and said,
Mhm.
"Don't trade us.
Yeah.
We want to stay in Chicago." So I have no doubt that they are already negotiating with him and his agent. I have no doubt there's already been talks. I think they'll get I think he'll be one of those cases where it looks like he's going to go to market, and then the day one of free agency he just resigns with the Cubs.
Unfortunately, I don't agree with you on that, because I think he's going to be with the team on our hats.
I would
All
love
si-
that.
all signs point to him coming to New York, and because he's a lefty, short porch, he could easily hit 40 home runs this season there, especially the way he's playing right now. But I would love to see him stay in Chicago, and especially as a New York fan. At the end of the day, people are going to look at Mike and I and say, "Oh, we're Yankees fans and everything like that." But at the end of the day, we look at the realistic sense of baseball. And if you're a good player, I like what he's doing in Chicago. I like and I think ultimately you can't break. And I agree with you. You can't break up that chemistry right there
Right.
of Stroman. The two best players on your team went to management and say, "I love the guys in that locker room. I want to play for those guys." And these guys are like, "Damn, us? Like we're a bunch of guys who's trying to like keep a job and like
Right.
keep on a roster. You want to play for us? Like, thanks." Like that, and I think that's what catapults the teams to the next level, and then go get the next level and go get that other ring and not wait another 108 years, right? So hats off to Stroman and Bellinger for doing that. But I think everyone needs to give him his flowers, because everyone,
Yeah.
including yourself at one point, wrote him off. And I remember having conversations that
I did not write him
he
off.
wrote you wrote him off at
I
one
did
point
not.
or not. You wrote him off in the sense of you don't think he could get back to caliber MVP caliber. I remember us having that conversation. And there's no problem with that, because at some point last year when he had 150 Ks, I was feeling the same way. That I was like, he may be a middle level player, but he's never going to get back to the MVP level. There's a difference. There's middle level player, which is fine. There's MVP level, best player in baseball. You did. I remember us having this conversation.
I never said he wouldn't get back to MVP level. I remember our conversation. I said he wasn't getting a long-term deal last year. That's what I said.
I don't know.
I didn't. I will say I didn't think he'd get back to that level this fast. I thought he had the potential to continue to. I mean, because we'd seen him be it before, and he's not old. But I know I didn't think he'd get back to MVP level. But my thoughts was more he wasn't worthy of a long-term deal. Now he is.
Well, that's in my opinion the same thing. In my opinion, because if he's not worthy of a long-term deal, that means he's not worthy of having. Then he's worth like what 2-3 years. So that's like an average middle of the road player. So that's typically what those are. Like most of those guys are getting 2 to 3 year deals. Like Rizzo. Rizzo's a mediocre, not a mediocre. Like right, he's a middle of the road player who has flashes, great for the organization, big name, big organization, but he's not a judge. There's only a top tier of players in the league that are consistently MVP level, and there's only a few players in that list: Acuna, Ohtani, Freeman, Vlad Guerrero, Aaron Judge, and that's about it. There's only a few handful of players at that level of play. Bellinger, in my opinion, I never saw it. So if you don't want to own it, I'll own it. I never thought he would get back to that level. I thought he could get back to maybe 250 batting. I never thought I saw this. So hats off to him. I'm happy for him. I hope he gets his bag in the offseason, and I hope he goes and gets his continues his 300 plus hitting. So take us away with that final take. Don't get so irritated with me.
I'm not. We're good. We're good. You did. So you mentioned a name that gives me a good little segue into my last take, which is you mentioned Shohei Ohtani. I don't know if you saw the news about. Yeah, no, he's a mediocre player. We're not serious. Everybody, we're not serious.
I'm dead serious. He's mediocre at best.
Oh no, he's not.
He'll be like 5 seconds ago. You just said he's top.
Yeah, you just said he's one of the top 5 players in the league. So I don't know if you saw the news about Shohei Ohtani, but he is missing his next start because of arm fatigue.
Yeah, throwing way too much.
Yeah. So to that end, Shohei Ohtani's arm fatigue highlights the Angels' lack of pitching depth.
Yeah,
in the case of this, I will give you a stat, as I usually know I'm a stat guy. Shohei Ohtani has thrown 130 2/3 innings this season. Right?
132?
130 and 2/3 innings.
And 2/3. Okay.
So 0.2.
Gotcha.
The next closest pitcher on that team is Patrick Sandoval, also a starter, who's thrown 109 2/3. It's the next closest. So
I mean, that doesn't sound too off because your best pitcher is supposed to kind of go longer innings in a sense. So that doesn't sound too off, but I'd have to go look at other teams like the Yankees. I'd have to look at them. I'd have to look at other teams in that sense. Just a good idea. You know what I mean? Because typically your starters like him, who is your ace, is supposed to go between probably 7 and 8 innings, right? And most of the other guys are probably 5 to 7 inning pitchers. Typically, I could be wrong, but that's just my
I mean that's what you hope. But my point is, he's throwing significantly more innings than anybody. Ace or not, I would think you'd want someone at least in the 120s that's keeping up innings wise. Maybe not success wise, but
I mean, they have, they ultimately dug their own grave with this. They're not going to sign. They didn't sign anyone at the deadline. They didn't get anyone at the deadline really to help out. They only got bullpen help, and that was okay. But I mean, I'm not surprised with the arm fatigue. He pitched a whole World Baseball Classic, and then went to spring training, pitched a couple games, and it's a long season, man. You're gonna get that fatigue, and that's why Mike Trout said he gave him 6 to 7 years of doing this back and forth stuff, because it may be arm fatigue, but it also must be just fatigue himself. Yeah, I understand. Starting pitchers like himself, who are aces, get at least 4 days before they have to get back up and get ready to go and get warmed and stuff like that. he's got to go out the next day and play DH and hit. And most of the time, he's on base running, stealing
Right.
bases, leading
Yeah.
the AL in stolen bases. Like he's doing a lot. So I mean, fatigue or not, I think it maybe is just a fatigue in general, but it is nerve wracking if I'm a GM of other teams in the offseason seeing that he's got arm fatigue right now because you know what that come with.
Unfortunately, and here's
TJ comes out of nowhere,
yeah, exactly. Oh,
unfortunately.
seriously, like look at all the pitchers that looked fine one day, and then you find out like 2 days later, yeah, they had their arm tested. They woke up with elbow discomfort, and now they need Tommy John surgery, and they're
Right.
out until September of the following season.
Correct.
So it's not what you want to see. And so, I mean, we talked about it earlier about our particular favorite team pitching someone into the ground. You don't want to see the Angels do that. And
Right.
the question this raises the is that what they're doing, and B, is that what they're going to have to do to contend?
100%.
Right.
There's no question in that. He
Well,
has to pitch. He has to go out and pitch 7, even probably 8 innings to win games. 100%. Yeah.
Well, we know that answer.
And potentially come out of the pen in the playoffs.
Correct. We know that answer. The question is, have the Angels accepted that answer and realized the error of their ways in the sense of not going and investing in other pitching?
Yeah.
Where you have to ask him, like you said, if he's got to come out for like an inning, let's say the Angels were to make a run, get more pitching depth, make a run, get to the World Series, and he does like a Madison Bumgarner where a couple times in that series he also comes out and throws an inning of relief to end the game, right? That's fine. If he's the only one you can ask to do that, like you can even think about asking to do that, which looking at their pitching staff, he'd be the only one I would think of you can ask to do that, then you've got a problem.
Yep.
If I got to consistently go to him because he's far and away the only pitcher I trust to get big outs, we've got a bigger problem here.
He's the pitcher. He's the only pitcher that you can get outs with, and he's the only guy on the bench that you can put at the plate to get a run in.
Right.
So he's doing more than he will do more than Bumgarner has ever done in his life in the playoffs.
Correct.
Even though Bumgarner's won a few World Series, here and there, he's gonna have to do a lot. So
right, which that's not. It's great that you have him to be able to do both,
right.
But when he's the only one you're really going to ask to do both, or like have to be the hero all the time, yeah,
right.
You're going to get this fatigue. So, I'm sorry, Angels, you did better at the deadline. You got some pitching and stuff to help, but you still did not start off with a good base, and therefore you're still kind of behind the 8 ball when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
What is your final takeaway of the week to end episode 9?
Well, we're going to stay on this Angels train because that's what I had for mine. And the Angels bit off more than they can chew because they said, we're in it to contend. And I said this was a terrible mistake. You need to dish him. You need to get rid of him because he's not. And in my opinion, I think he'll be an Angel next year because I think they see the potential. But if everyone's feeling is that he's not re-signing, you have to get rid of him and get potential players for him because this isn't a player option year where he picks up his player option and he's got one more year. He's gone if you don't re-sign him.
Right.
And it'll be the biggest, in my opinion, biggest waste of 6 years with a player because you just didn't do anything for the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you didn't do anything to go get what you needed from him in the sense of trading for him. So as the Angels, to your point about the playoffs, yes, they're going to have to pitch him until he's in the ground. Like you're going to have to pitch him. And then in the games that he's not pitching, when he's hitting, they're going to have to throw him in the bullpen and have him come out for relief.
Right.
Like Japan did. Like they're going to have to do that to win games. So yeah, to your question, 100%. That's the only way they can win games. And they don't have Mike Trout right now unless he came back and I didn't see. But I mean, the Angels really bit off more than can chew in this trade deadline because they thought, oh, we're going to contend for the playoffs. But in my head, they never were going to contend for the playoffs. They never seemed like they were that streaking well. So in my head, they've worked out a deal with his agent. They just haven't put it out yet. And he's going to resign with the Angels. Because why else wouldn't you trade him? You were third in the NL West or AL West, and you were the fourth wild card team, and I think still 6 or 7 games out.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the whole move. And I remember you were saying, like, oh, they're trying to make a playoff push, but they didn't do anything. If you were made a playoff push and you went ahead and got yourself a lot more players at the trade deadline, made some key acquisitions, got rid of Rondon's contract, and got in some guys for that, then I can see, okay, they made a push. They didn't make a push. They traded for 1 or 2 guys for a bullpen help.
Mhm.
So in my head, they're resigning him because there's no way a team can sit there and say, we're not going to do anything at the deadline, and we're going to keep the player that potentially could leave. So in my head, they're resigning him.
I hope so.
I don't.
I hope so, because
I don't.
it's no. I mean, I'm saying from an outside baseball perspective, if that's the case, I hope for their sake. I hope so, because if they did this, I agree with you. If they did this without making damn sure that he's coming back, then
You
you've
just lost out on a lot of
absolutely wasted
potential
it.
prospects. Yes.
Right. This is not your average player. This is not your average player that's got a chance to go to free agency, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a generational talent. He is doing things that, and I know they the MLB and ESPN and all them shove this fact down our throats, but it's true. You can't deny the truth of the fact he's doing things that haven't been done since Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
This is different. This is like the Oilers not trading Connor McDavid when they're not sure he's staying, and they're not making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, my hope is that he doesn't resign with the Angels. I think he's going to. My prediction is going to. I hope he doesn't, because then he's just going to waste his talents there and never win a championship, because they haven't been set up to win a championship with arguably the best player in MLB over the last 10 years in Mike Trout, and have never done anything to help him get there. They went and signed an older Rendon that had a whoopsie good season in the COVID season, and I remember when he signed that contract, we were both like, "What?" you were. I think you were more confused because you knew about him more, and I was just like, "Oh, he played well in the World Series." He's like, "Yeah, but that was like the only time he played good. Like he didn't play good at all."
Right. This year was his only good year,
and I was just confused because they haven't done anything. They haven't really done anything since 2002 when they made it to the World Series. So, in my opinion, you've had the best player in the world there. Him and Mike Trout and him are really good friends, So I know friendships only go so much when it comes to contract, but at the end of the day, that's why I said that. That's why I said the Angels bit off more than they can chew, because I think they screwed themselves with this bringing him back and not trading him. So for my thought process, he's going to stay an Angel and stay with that team, because I mean, you look at the Japanese players that have come over before, like Hideki Matsui, Tanaka, Ichiro Suzuki. A lot of those guys, I mean, Ichiro was probably on some terrible ass Seattle teams that were like, he needs to go somewhere else, and he never left, because they're very committable to their teams, and there's nothing wrong with that, but at least help the guy out. Go get him players to help win a championship, contend. How do you have? That's why I don't understand when people have these big players and big names, is that they don't go out and surround them and try to win with them. How great would that have been if the Cubs won the World Series with Sammy Sosa? How good would it have been if the Angels ever won a World Series with Mike Trout?
Or
Like the
Vlad
story
Guerrero.
or Vlad Guerrero, like the story or Torrey Hunter. You know, how good would it have felt like, and I can keep going on and on, like,
Right.
but these are generational talents in a sense. Like you keep saying generational. Like I put Vlad Guerrero up there as a good hit, like a Hall of Famer, obviously, and
Right.
great player. But I don't put him on Mike Trout level. I don't
No.
put him on. I don't put him on. Shohei Ohtani level. So my biggest gripe for this is you're just wasting these guys' talents, and how do teams do this is just beyond me. Like these guys re-sign with you and stick with you, and yet you can't sit there and go get them. We had a topic on Cinco Squad a couple weeks ago about players should be committable to teams, but the team should respect them. And it's like, no, like like ultimately, there is a balance there.
Right.
So
Yeah, 100%. The Angels, and this will be my last word on it. The Angels have always, for some reason, decided to load their lineup up with veteran hitters and go with one pitcher.
right,
Jared Weaver. Before Ohtani, it was Jared Weaver. They literally just had Jared Weaver, and then they added like little pieces here and there.
right.
They signed Ohtani. It seems like they thought Ohtani was going to solve all their pitching problems. He can only do so much, as good as he is. So yeah, to not help him, that's the thing. I know Japanese players. I agree. Japanese players are different with how they handle things and all that. But if it were me, I would have left a long time ago. If I was Trout, I would have left a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, like Otani's going into his year, so we don't know what's going to happen yet.
Right.
So we'll have this conversation next season when
Yeah,
we're on the rotation. But
we'll find
like
out.
ultimately, he's got to make the best choice for him. But I think he's going to re-sign with the Angels. This told me that ultimately, and if it didn't, the rest of the baseball world, I don't know what will, because that's a clear-cut sign. Why would a franchise, knowing they're going to lose a player or not even be in contention with a player, go ahead and re-sign him? I don't. That's what I don't get. So,
Yeah.
but that's why we continue to talk about it, and
Yep.
we got another week of baseball in the books. Heading down to the playoff time, we'll be here every single week until the end of the World Series. So you're not getting rid of us. We may even do something special for the World Series. We'll let you know about that. But Mike, it was a great week of baseball. Let's see if our Yankees can turn it around. Most likely won't. But make sure you tune in. Down there is our socials: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart Podcasts for audio, TikTok and Twitter for our socials. Make sure you tune in. We got a lot of great things coming forward. So have a great rest of your evening, everyone. We'll see you here next week.